if then every time I went to the gym, I was like, I'm a fat piece of shit. I can't eat pizza because I'm broken or because I have this food addiction or I can't, it has to be framed as I'm so excited to be a fighter again. I'm so excited to get back in the gym. Okay, my cardio is not what it used to be, but it's gonna be. And how exciting is that? If it gets to the legit point of self-hate, you go, well, what's the point?
My guest today is Jamie Kilstein. He is a comedian, a jiu-jitsu black belt. He thinks God is cool. He is also the host of comedy podcast Trauma Bonding and anti-political political show. You can find him on Instagram at the Jamie Kilstein. Jamie Kilstein, welcome back to the American Glutton podcast.
Was anyone listening to this podcast when I first did it over like COVID?
Like 4 people.
Yeah.
That was the beginning. Well, were you on in 2020 or was it still 2019 when we recorded?
Bro, I feel like I was one of your first guests. I don't even know if we talked about health. I remember briefly talking about like indie hip hop.
We talked about indie hip hop, and here's my memory of your health. You were a vegan?
Yes.
Well, this is what we'll talk about.
Great. Yeah. Let's just alienate everyone right away by bringing up the vegan thing.
Why? No, listen, here's my personal position on all of this shit. Whatever works for somebody, if they find a system where they're like, and veganism, like, I mean, it's just there's people that only eat meat. That's crazy too. There's people that like think vegetables are poisonous. There's people that think cucumber skin is going to kill them. You know what I mean?
Right. Everyone is like kind of wrong about everything.
Or if they figured something out for themselves, just be right for yourself. How about that? How about you're right for yourself?
This is why at first I was upset. Do it.
The audience. Fucking dive in. Let's go, Kilstein.
I was so excited. I love you so much. I was so excited to do the podcast. Assumed I was doing it for nobody. Then I didn't even know how the podcast was doing. I look it up one day and I was like, this motherfucker, this podcast is so big now. And I literally wrote you and was like, hey, can I come on now that people like listen to the show? And because I feel like that's always my role is I did this really big, one of the really big podcasts over at your mom's house had me on for the test show so that they could get approved and get hired. I haven't been on that fucking show. It's so popular now that it's on the air, and every guest, it's like Matt Rife, Barack Obama. And I'm like, I'm not going to be on the show. I'm only on the show when no one listens to the show. I'm like the, in those 90s rom-coms where it's like kind of like a walk to remember situation where they're friends with like, or they're like starting to fall in love with the nerdy girl who's just a hot girl in glasses.
Yeah.
And then they don't want them like publicly. I'm not hot. I'm still on.
Take off the glasses, let your hair down, put on some lipstick. That's all it takes. All it takes.
Oh my God, it's Mandy Moore.
Yeah.
So with the vegan thing, I mean, I remember one of the coolest moments I had when it comes to just seeing that the divisiveness online is bullshit.
Yeah.
Is back when I was like super preachy vegan. So like, in my 20s living in Brooklyn, doing all that stuff. I remember Rob Wolf, who's like the big paleo guy. He wrote all these paleo books. He went on Rogan, crushed it. And my Twitter essentially blew up with like, hey, why don't you debate homophobic slur, Kilstein, that vegan, blah, blah, blah. So I went and I listened to Rob's podcast, assuming he would just be atrocious. And he was like really reasonable and really sweet. And I saw that we had a lot of the same goals when it came to factory farming and eating whole foods that I literally just like emailed the guy and was like, hey man, you want to come on my podcast? And we had the greatest conversation. We became friends. He does jiujitsu. And he's like my boy. Like we still disagree on some stuff, but I think I mean, the three of us, I mean, just by the little you've said right now, it's like we have the same goal. We want people to be happy and healthy. And when you take on a religion or a political party or a diet as your identity, which
Oh
I've
man.
done before, that's when it's trouble. You should be rooting for everyone to be happy. You know, me as I'm just vegetarian now, and it's honestly, it's mainly for I fucking love animals and I get sad whenever I see a video of like, here's a pig and a baby. And I'm like, you know what?
By the way, I think from my point of view, that's the most rational, because I think everything else is schemes and weird scientific studies just to rationalize what you're saying. Like, it's okay. You don't want to kill little baby animals. That's okay.
That's it. And if I have to suffer the consequences, all right. But I'm not going to be, I think what happens is because we are so divided on everything and so tribal, especially online, what happens is people feel like no matter what, they have to defend their cause.
Yeah.
So you have a carnivore guy go to a vegan. Well, what about all this like processed beyond meat stuff that's, you know, unhealthy? And the vegan feels like I have to defend this. Right. Or you get, you know, with politics, you get someone who thought that Bill Clinton was like a sex creep. And they feel like, but they have to defend Donald Trump if he's being a sex creep. Or, you know, I was against the war under Bush, but I have to defend it when Obama does it because it's a righteous bomb. And he probably was listening to a cool Spotify playlist when he dropped it or whatever. And I think that the bottom line is we should learn how to have principles and values. And then that's kind of it. We do our best to align to that. And, you know, we try to show people the positive side and lead by example, but this whole like I can't be friends with someone who disagrees with me, like I'm too old for that shit, dude.
It gets even crazier because down that path where you have all that defensiveness and trying to rationalize your positions and prove that your position is absolutely correct, you then see those groups start to consume their own also. Like, if one person is even perceived to be out of step, even though they're championing the cause of whatever cause is, they will just get chewed up and spit out, which is so, I mean, the whole thing is perplexing. And it's part of what keeps me from going like, I don't want to be in any of these groups. These groups are crazy.
Buddy, I remember before any of my like actual drama happened, I don't know if I've told this story in a podcast, but it's such a prime example to me. So I start my stand-up in New York and, you know, trying to be Bill Hicks. So all my stuff's anti-religion, anti-establishment, all this, whatever, but I'm not as good as Hicks yet. But like, I'm getting there. I'm starting to, I think Marin brought me to open for him. Like I was starting to get some cool stuff. And then 9/11 happens. And politics is not the popular to talk about. And I was just like, I was just bombing. And so I go home and there was this, and my dad had cable and I couldn't afford a TV. So I sat there like a fucking Quaker child who's never sat. And I'm just like watching HBO and stuff like that. And there's this show called Def Poetry Jam and it's slam poetry. And some of it's awful. Some of it's like the white girl, you'd like, my vagina is a tree. And she starts singing Amazing Grace, like that. But like Mos Def hosts it. Fucking Kanye freestyled on it once. Talib Kweli was on it. Like there was some really dope stuff too. And I was like, what the fuck is slam poetry? So I essentially was like, okay, I can be preachy. I'll be funnier than all these guys. And I can be long-winded. I was like, this art is made for me. So I'm in New York and I start performing at Bowery Poetry Club, New Eurekan, which like fucking Allen Ginsberg used to perform there. And because I'm kind of funny, I am crushing it. Like I win every New York title because it's like a competition. I get flown to Austin to perform at the Paramount because I'm in the top 10 in the world. Like I get very good. And I'm like, I found my people. I'm a poet. And pretty much like right when I started winning stuff, one of the Lena Dunham-esque gals who I have seen on TV and was a fan of, she does She gets up on stage, and I used to have this. I mean, it's a lame joke, especially now, but I used to have this joke about I had in my rant that was like a pro-gay marriage thing. It was something about gay people and the whole thing is just pro-gay, pro-gay, pro-gay. But it's like something like gay people don't even have domestic violence, something like that's called a fair fight or some. It's probably a hacky joke now, but back then it crushed.
Yeah.
And so this girl gets on stage, and they have very long titles. And she goes, this poem's called "To the Comedian Who Thinks That Gay Domestic Violence is Funny."
Oh, no.
And I started like looking around, and I'm like,
is there another one?
Tell me there's another one.
Yeah.
And it was this like, you can't be a real poet. You're just and I was like, bro, I got canceled in slam poetry before Twitter existed. Like, they will find, because to me, I'm like, okay, poets are a step below comedian, a step above mime. Certainly, we will all have each other's back in this community to raise up this art form that no one respects. And my theory is that when you get a bunch of people who are lockstep with everything, because they have to be, like you were saying, there is this inner asshole evolutionary something where we're like, we still gotta fight. So
well, yeah, I have a problem with her premise, because doesn't her whole position presuppose that in every relationship there must be a power imbalance? Because otherwise it's just two dudes fighting.
That was my stupid joke.
That's your point.
I just pictured me and another jujitsu guy having like a badass role, and then just being like, all right, fine, I'll do the dishes or whatever. Like, and especially like, this sounds so cheesy, but I feel like nowadays, we just don't see people's heart. You know, we don't see people just trying their fucking best. You know, I mean, there are shit stirrers on every side. There are intolerant people on every side. But when you actually just like talk to most people in real life about, you know, diet or health or mental health, like, we're all just trying. And to me, if I saw somebody doing, a rant that defends me or that's trying to, and then maybe I go, oh, maybe they don't know that like domestic violence like is a real problem. Like, I don't know, maybe it is a real problem and maybe it gets reported less or taken less seriously. I would walk up to that person and be like, hey man, I really appreciate what you're trying to do. You probably don't know this, but gay domestic violence actually is a real problem and it's really tragic and whatever. I wouldn't be like, I'm not even going to tell him. I'm just going to fucking write this shitty ass poem. And then I'm going to shame him for trying to defend. She wasn't even gay, by the way.
Right. I mean, the whole thing is just so stupid. I think that my issue with all of this and by the way, it's an issue I find with myself, because quite often, I mean, I remember going around judging everyone I saw, thinking they all had grain brain, right? When I was on that diet, when I thought we're just suffering from grain brain, we need to get rid of grains. And then I'd go to a restaurant, and if you're not eating sashimi only at the sushi restaurant, you're having actual nigiri, you have grain brain because you're consuming rice, which is a grain. And like, my attempt is really to try to give the most honest space to the other perspective. What are they really trying to say? So in your situation, I think anybody who I mean, you're just not trying to make a joke out of some, imbalance of power beating up on some powerful person. That's not the point of your joke. So let's try to get the point of your joke. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing.
If I wrote the joke because I'm like, so I saw a gay person hobbling out of a house crying with a black eye. What's good? You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're a monster.
Yeah.
But man, so anyway, so like back to the diet thing. Do you think that when you were judging people harshly, because I feel like so much of that comes from Like for me, in my example, examples, my life. When I judge people, I feel like a lot of it comes from fear,
Yeah.
or insecurity, or just sort of praying I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if you felt that way.
Well, here's the thing. It's very difficult for me to step outside of my experience, right? Because everything gets filtered through the lens of what I experience. So for so long, I was trying to handle obesity. I just didn't want to be obese. And then I got sold a number of times that it wasn't actually, I didn't need to handle obesity. I needed to handle, that I was not eating the proper food for my blood type, or that lectins and preservatives were the underlying factor that were causing me to be obese, or carbohydrates later.
Yeah.
And the thing I realized at the end of it is like, oh no, for me, obesity is a symptom of something else. So if I'm just trying to treat this symptom, I'm never going to actually get it resolved, because I'm missing the culprit. The culprit is fear. It's a fear of discomfort. It's a fear of even being alone with myself is so uncomfortable. It's an anxiety about what other people think of me, and that I can even take solace and comfort through food. It's just this feeling of vacancy within me that I'm trying to literally fill with something material.
Dude.
But all of that is undercuts obesity. And so when I found a system that produced weight loss like keto did for a temporary amount of time, I never got to a place where I was happy with keto. I never got all the way to like, this is a good, healthy weight that I can maintain forever. Then, I'm doing keto. It's producing weight loss. That's my problem. Now I'm going to apply my problem to everybody else. So I see anyone who could be perceived as even slightly overweight, and I go, well, they're eating carbohydrates. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like it's all filtered through my experience, which is just not an absolute truth. Like it can't be.
That's so good. I have a vegan thing, but on the mental health part of that, I so agree with you, because I would consider food the greatest addiction I've ever had.
Yeah.
For men, it's an addiction. For women, it's an eating disorder. I had a manly addiction of mozzarella sticks from Sonic. And I would tell myself, I can't do stand-up. I can't do late shows because, if I have one drink, then I'm going to drive home, or I'm going to want, In-N-Out burger or whatever. And then I was like, I'll just stop drinking. And I would stop drinking. And then, because I'm like, the drinking leads to the food, or there was a phase, dude, where I was I so didn't want to say I have an eating disorder that I was smoking weed, which I don't even like anymore. I liked when I was a kid. I was smoking weed just so I wouldn't feel stupid.
Right. In order to rationalize, well, I have the munchies. I have to eat this stuff.
I have to eat. Right. Because if you're with your boys and you're like, hey, you want to rip a blunt? That still sounds manly. But if you're with your boys and you're like, hey, you guys feeling cheesecake? Like that sounds fucking insane.
But it works after you rip a blunt.
Everyone wants to go to Cheesecake. Listen, going to Cheesecake Factory stoned, the greatest day of your life. The free bread keeps coming. Going sober as a single man and being like, are there free refills on the sourdough? Bro.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's not good. So I was like trying to do all this math and shit like that. Anyway, I get in a healthy, stable relationship. I'm married. I'm really proud of the stand-up I'm doing. I'm not drinking just because I don't want to drink. I'm back at jiu-jitsu. There's no part of me, unless I'm starving, then nothing's open. And then I go, okay, tomorrow we'll hit the gym early and whatever. But it wasn't stand up. It wasn't drinking. It was that I was sad and trying to fill the sad hole. If it wasn't, Sonic, it would be porn. And if it wasn't that, it would be alcohol if I liked alcohol more. I just like food more than alcohol. I don't enjoy the taste of alcohol. I enjoy pizza.
My suspicion, Jamie, is that many people share this with us. That's my suspicion. However, all I can do is say, here's my experience.
Yeah.
And if you relate to it, then cool, you relate to it. But I can't take my experience and go, you have mental baggage that you're solving with food, which is causing obesity. So you want to, if you just keep treating the obesity and not the mental garbage, then the obesity will continue to come up in other strange ways.
Because you don't know.
I don't fucking know.
Have a fucking thyroid issue.
Right, know? Exactly. Or maybe lectins are ruining their lives and they just need to peel their fucking cucumbers.
Right. But I think that's so important because there are times that I've given what I think is just like the best advice on the internet or on my Instagram or on a podcast. And people are like, meh. And then there are times where I'm like, no one's going to relate to this, but I just have to vent. And I'm like, here's the bullshit I'm going through. And then my DMs are like, you saved my life today, blah, blah, blah. Right. So I almost think that like just to say good job, it's like sometimes just talking about your experience and not acting like you know everything, which is the algorithm doesn't reward that shit. You know what I mean? Like my wife and I's podcast, it's like we're talking about faith, but I'm questioning it and she's Christian, or we're talking about when I talk about politics, it's how I talked about it before. I'm like, well, I like this liberal and I like this conservative. And you get rewarded for being, I'm the keto guy. Watch me debate vegans. I'm the vegan. Watch me debate keto guys. I'm the conservative. All fucking liberals are snowflakes. I'm a liberal. All conservatives are racist or whatever it is. So like good for fucking you for doing this. Good for your audience for rewarding it and sticking around. But it's tough, man. And I do hope people heard that and can relate to it. They can certainly relate to the Cheesecake Factory part, but I do hope they relate to it. And I hope if men hear it, geez, dude, like locker rooms of a jiu-jitsu gym, we say it in a deeper voice and we're trying to be funny, but there is just as much insecurity as in a fucking high school cheerleading locker room. We just mask.
Oh, and your practice is in violence. So like there's an edge there too, where I understand the insecurity, but you look at the dudes at the top of your sport. Okay, there's like Gordon Ryan, who's like the alpha of all alphas, but then there's Mikey, who is the most innocent looking guy that loves pizza and like is the king of the nerds. And like the only time we've ever seen him actually angry was when he was fighting a bully.
When he gets bullied. I mean?
Yeah.
Dude, Mikey loses it when he gets bullied. It's
amazing.
So yeah, I've become buddies with him, and it's so fun. Well, I mean, but also like Gordon Ryan's stomach is eating himself.
Right. Like,
and I say that like very sympathetically. But like he's the best. I mean, that's how good he is, right? That is like he fought last night. He made his return last night, and he beat the hell out of the guy. And then during the post interview, he was just like, I was dry heaving during my warm up. And my friend Kendall was interviewing him and she was like, who do you want next? And he's like, I'd love just to not be able to throw up during my warm up. Like it was just, and so you look at him and he's just so technical. He's so good, but like we would think like, well, that's what I want to strive for. It's like, no. He's very sick. Yeah. And then you look at Mikey, who's doing his thing. God, Mikey's last post interview. It's so funny because do you remember in the bully one you were talking about, the announcer kept desperately trying to like, be like, guess what? You get a bonus. And he's like, and another thing.
Yeah.
Fucking talk to me that way. And I was like, shit, Mikey's going off, bro.
Yeah. He was in a zone and it was funny because like he's only been, all I've known of him is his really silly, like almost dad joke.
Oh yeah.
Videos, or him just being super earnest, or really him having fun. He's amazing.
Talking about mental health. And again, that's just someone who is sharing their experience, right? Yeah. They're not like, he's not suddenly like, I'm the mental health guy. Like I found my niche. I found my market. I got to corner it. He's just, when he struggles with that, he struggles with that. And then he's just really inspirational on the mat. And you go, oh, okay, I want to be like that guy. And, when you see someone like that succeed, or the Rotolos, he's fighting, like you see them succeed. They just are sweet kids who surf and do jujitsu. And I mean,
I do think I understand the insecurity in any locker room, but I do like jujitsu for that point. And I did jujitsu for a long time with Eddie Bravo many years ago, and now I feel just that I'm way too old because I did hurt myself a couple of times. But like guys like Tom DeBlas, is that how you say his last name? Who literally like sees videos of kids getting bullied and says, I would like to fly you to my academy and train you for free.
Dude.
Because there is something about the confidence you can get by knowing, words suck, words hurt. I was never really like physically tormented as a kid. And I wasn't even honestly verbally or mentally tormented that much. But when it happens, it's soul crushing.
Yep.
I had to avoid, I remember I was in one school, a middle school that went all the way to kindergarten, and I couldn't walk by the little kids because little kids have no filter and they'd just be like, he's so fat, like just as a statement. And that was so scary that I would avoid being near little kids. But there isn't something about confidence when like if these words hurt bad enough that I get the confidence to send words back, and then their only their last resort is to hurt me physically, which is what I think the end product of a verbal altercation becomes a physical altercation. I can deal with myself.
We're still talking about the little kids, right?
I'm talking about jujitsu. Yeah,
we know where this goes, you kindergarten fuck.
Yeah, not so much with the little kids, I guess, but like, I just think jujitsu is a wonderful sport for.
Well, jujitsu made my stand-up better. Yeah. I mean, when I started training, because I started training in like 99 when it was still like I was 17 or something, and the coach was a blue belt. It was a straight blast gym. I mean, Connor, I wasn't even, he was probably in elementary school, but straight blast gym kind of started as this before Connor, this like rogue. It was one of those really big, the founder, this guy, Matt Thornton, used to do challenge matches and go to Jeet Kune Do schools and just be like, your shit doesn't work. I'll fight you.
Let's fight.
And it was wild. And so, but me and my little brother, me and Nick, who, we both snuck into the movie theater to see you in Mallrats, and we were at a strip mall doing challenge matches because we were the kids. So some Krav Maga guy or some karate guy would roll in, and Paul, our coach, would be like, all right, go fight the kids. And like, that's how I started. So I started with no belts, just fighting grownups. And then I started doing stand-up and took like a 5-year break. But maybe longer. And when I started kind of training again, I was a little older. I was like in my late 20s when I started training very seriously. And that was at Marcelo Garcia's, who's known as the greatest of all time. And I was there for like 10 years, and it made my stand-up better because of that. And it sounds so silly, but I should say first that my jujitsu friends, my friends who are in the UFC, for the most part, are the last people who would ever get into a fight because there's nothing to prove.
Right.
But the knowing, I mean, I've talked my way out of so many fights. You know how fucking famous I would be with the amount of hecklers that have started shit if I just did one of those things where it's like
come on up here
and double legs. Like, my God, like that would be so viral. And I can talk my way out of it because I have that calmness and that confidence.
In a world besieged by unhealthy choices, where fast and ultra-processed foods are omnipresent and dominate society, you can fight back. Introducing the Prep Deck, a radical new tool that turns temptation into healthy choices. This is not a diet, and we realize that this commercial has told you nothing at all about the product itself. Please follow the link below for more information.
I remember Joe Rogan, when I started training with Eddie Bravo, it was just in a kickboxing gym where they would just like clear out an area. And
was it the one that was like upstairs at like Heroes or something?
No, that was Legends. That was the next one. This was the Bomb Squad.
Holy shit. Okay.
in Hollywood. And do you remember, this could be way too before your time too, because I am a grandfather. Keep this in mind. This was like
Are you a grandfather?
I am. This was early 2000s, Jamie. This was 20 plus years ago. And there was SureDog. That was where you got all your MMA news. And then
I was a little
the forums
around the SureDog for. Oh no, on the
MMA.tv.
Yes.
So MMA.tv, some guy starts talking shit about Joe Rogan, and Joe's like, well, or somebody said, here's where he trains. And the guy came in and they videotaped it, and Joe just like handled him
nicely.
Yeah.
Get out of him. I remember he could have killed him.
Right. And he gently showed him like, look, here's what I'm doing and how I'm better than you. This was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember that video at the time. This was before Twitter was a thing and YouTube and any of that. But I remember that being all over those threads.
At my worst, I've definitely said on many podcasts, here's the gym I train at. You don't have to talk shit. You can sign a waiver and we can legally, right. If you hate me that much, this is a thing that's very easy to do. I just want to say, I think you can do jujitsu, and you don't have to if you don't want to. Okay. But for people listening or, who think they're too old, you can do it, and you have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
But being smart is also how you get good at jujitsu, right? So you would, for example, if somebody was like, hey, I'm too old to start working out, you'd be like,
yes,
no, you work out, right?
No, yes. I mean, listen, Anthony Bourdain started doing jujitsu at 60. It's not that scary, but you can, it is not something where you're guaranteed to get hurt. Like, it's like saying to somebody like, you want to start riding a bike, you're gonna fall down. You know what I mean? That doesn't have to be true.
Well, and I remember for me, and I'm sure there are people who can relate to this, but for me, I was never athletic. I failed gym class. And when I say this to people, they think it's hyperbolic. They're like, you can't fail gym class. I'm like, sure can. Just smoke weed every day and lie and say you left your shorts at home, and then just watch kids play dodgeball and just be like, the machines got them. Look at that. So I failed gym class, and I was getting really out of shape, and I loved fighting, and I grew up on all those, Brandon Lee and Van Damme and all those movies, and wanted to protect people. I wanted to be the dude who would step in if someone was bullied. And so I was like, oh, well, I just want to learn how to fight, right? So what I would say, if there's anyone listening to this who's like, I hate going to the gym. Bro, I hate going to the gym. Yeah. I was just injured for a year, and I couldn't do jiu-jitsu, and I got fat again, and I was miserable. And I would try to go to the gym, and I'm like, this sucks. And even when I started, I teach the kids over at Tim Kennedy's spot. And even when I started rolling with the kids, lightly, because I could do that, I can roll with black belts, and I can roll with kids and my wife. When I would roll with the kids, even that, it felt so different, because I'm like, right, this is something I love. So if you need to start working out and you're like, I hate the gym, but let's say you love music, start taking walks and listening to your music.
Right.
Or if you're like, I love basketball, buy a basketball, find a court, start learning how to throw free throws. I think that at least you have to find something you love. So if somebody was like, I'm too old for jujitsu and I don't really know anything about it, and I went to this gym and these blue belts just fuck me up because I'm old, I'm like, that's a bad gym. That's a bad experience.
And don't roll with blue belts.
And don't roll with blue belts. Right. Exactly. But if you came to me, or if you texted me and you were like, dude, I really want to go back, I'm being pulled back to it, then I would say you just have to put your ego aside. Right. So what I mean by that is, sometimes I'll roll with much bigger people who are older. I mean, this just happened the other day. He was probably your age, and he was 3 times my size. And I hadn't even warmed up. I showed up to teach the class after, but he didn't have a partner. And I'm like, hey man, I'm coming back from an injury, but like, if you want to just move around, I'll go with you. And I had my black belt on. So like, I wasn't just like like he knew he was in good hands. And this dude, like I kidnapped his daughter, like so hard, direct eye contact. And I was just like, hey man, are you sure you want to go this hard? Like, do you want to loosen up? And I don't know if there was a language barrier. It was so wild. And so I beat the shit out of him because I have to, or I'm going to get hurt. Not in like a mean way. I didn't start, but I was just like, okay, I can't play anymore.
Yeah.
And so the reason I say that is if you go, okay, I have to go light, I have to be careful. And then you start being a lunatic, you're going to get the lunatic energy and
you're going
to get lunatic energy back. But if you just go, you know what, every time that 22-year-old punk taps me out, I'm going to say good job. And I'm going to start to kind of rearrange. If you can loosen your limbs, I remember when I asked Marcelo, hey, how do I avoid injuries? Now, this probably isn't the best answer in the world. It's a very Brazilian Marcelo answer. I go, should I lift? Should I run? He goes, oh, James, just do jujitsu. And I go, wait. Like, I'm going to do jujitsu, but then like, if I have an off day, should I like lift or run?
More jujitsu.
James, just more jujitsu. But when he explained it, well, the thing he said that was completely insane. He's like, when you squeeze choke, it's like, and I'm like, it's not. But what he said that was really interesting with the injuries is he goes, the more you're aware of your body, the more you can help prevent injuries. And freak things happen, but freak things happen running. I remember I had some like scrawny woke journalist friend in Brooklyn who broke their arm walking up the subway steps. And I was like, all right, well, if fucking that can happen, I might as well do the thing that I love. And so when you actually train a little more cautiously, train a little looser, you can sort of feel what's happening. My wife is a $115 or a $120, and very new to jujitsu. And I started taking her to a 10th planet, and when she's relaxed, she's going into these like X guard positions, is like really complicated. And then when she tenses up, she falls down like she's never walked before. And so it's like when you can stay calm, like there are guitar players, there are surgeons, there are people who can train. You just have to do that. And you also have to have no ego where you say no to people.
Yeah.
If I have some aggressive, bigger, even like purple belt come up to me and I just get a weird energy, they're like,
I want to tap you.
Yeah, I'm like, no, thanks. Like, I can go with Tim Kennedy, who's one of the best in the world. I can go with them. And I would rather get beat up by them than beat up some dude who's trying to prove a point. Like, I don't need that. I want to get better. So you can do it. If you are a white belt, if you are new and you are older, tell the instructor. Like people, I think, because jiu-jitsu is so daunting, they forget that they're customers, that they're paying oftentimes way too much money to do jiu-jitsu. You can go to the coach. Hey, here's my situation. I really love jiu-jitsu. I really want to train. I know it'll be good for my mental health. Who do you think's good? We just started going to a new gym. I'm a fucking black belt. And I go, hey, who do you think I can roll with? I can tap probably almost everyone, but like, that's not the question. Like, who do you think I can roll with?
Yeah.
And if that just means I roll with my wife, that girl, that black belt, that kid, great. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, I think that your overall point is super valid too, because like I loved jiu-jitsu. I loved Muay Thai. I love lifting weights. I didn't like running. Like I went and I had a buddy who was like, you got to get into running. It's amazing. It's great cardio, all of this. And like, I just didn't like it. I don't like running and never felt good during or after. And so like, that's not something I can, that's not something that's for me, but like, I look at some people who are actually into it, and why would I tell them don't do that or tell everybody do that? Or, for some people it's going to work. For some people it's going to be jiu-jitsu. By the way, when I was obsessed with jiu-jitsu, I flew to New York and did privates with Marcelo Garcia.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to do privates with Renzo Gracie. He was way too expensive. So I got one of his top black belts for some still astronomical price. But
Yeah.
I think he was going to charge me like $2,500 an hour or something. And
Holy shit.
I said,
Dude,
that's too much.
At Henzo's before Danaher, before Gordon, before the Danaher Death Squad, before I trained at Marcelo's, I was taking privates with Danaher. It was like $80.
Yeah.
Private. And I'm like, because no one really knew who he was. Like there was just like whispers in New York. Of
right.
This,
there's
like,
a Jedi master.
Yeah. And like he was still like, I got to roll with him. He was still rolling. Like that was before his hip. I mean, I don't know if he was rolling with like the big boys, but he'd roll with my vegan 140 pound. And it's wild. Marcelo is just,
he's an angel. He's like a cherubic, sweet, amazing guy. Don't you see that? Yeah.
And that's to me, again, as I get older, that's the energy I'm looking to be around.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a difference between I'm good at fighting and a martial artist. And I would rather, I'm pretty sure the dude that we just started training with, because we moved. So Tim's spot's kind of far away. And it's like, if I'm teaching 3 kids classes, it's very hard to be like, and now I'll train. I'm just like, I'm so tired. So we found a place close to us, a 10th Planet, and he might be a brown belt. If not, he is a very new black belt, but he knows shit I don't know. And he just has this like Zen poet yogi energy, and he speaks like a martial artist. He speaks with that sort of Zen Buddhism, like beginner mind. He speaks, and those are the people I want to be around. Like that's another thing I'll say is if you go to a gym, especially if you're smaller or you're a woman and you feel unwelcomed or you feel unsafe, that's a bad gym.
Yeah, and we are not lacking gyms. There's so many gyms. There's gonna be a gym for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just have to find your tribe and find your people. And again, you have to be doing it for people who are on any kind of like health. Oh God, the Christian in me wants to say journey, and the comedian in me wants to smack the Christian in me. But any health journey,
I want to say one addendum to your statement, which I think is also valid. When I started losing weight, my health journey.
I'm sorry.
Smack me. It took me, I think, 150 pounds and a number of years before I would step foot in a gym because I had a preconception of how I would feel at the gym. So I think it is valid. You can show up at a gym and the vibe can be terrible. And then I say, I completely agree. Go to find another gym. But like that hurdle of like not even getting there to like really suss out whether that vibe exists objectively for you or not, that mental baggage is something you should try. I wish I had defeated earlier.
That's really good. I mean, that kind of even ties into what I'm saying or what I was about to say, which is like the times I've done anything, whether it's eat healthier or, train or whatever, if you do it, and maybe you'll disagree with this. Maybe this is a just for me thing. It could be a just for me thing. For me, when I'm doing it from self-hate, unsustainable. And maybe self-hate will get me to like that first step. Like I remember Tim Kennedy fat shamed me pretty badly. When I came back from my injury, he was my first role because I was injured when I got my black belt. And so I kind of came in to like do class with my wife and I was just going to drill. And Tim's like, you got to get your black belt rolls, man. You got to get smashed by all the black belts. And so my first roll back was Tim. And I thought it went pretty okay. And then afterwards, I wanted to be, the humble. I get so stupid around that guy. I just say dumb stuff. And I go, hey, thanks for the roll. Like, sorry, my cardio isn't better. I'm just coming back and like, I'll work that up. And it's one of those things, as I said it, I was like, I think I wanted a compliment. And I was like, And Tim just goes, eat less and exercise more. And then he shook my hand and I go, great. And then he like DM'd me afterwards. It was like really sweet, but he's a blunt dude. And I go, all right, that is what I needed. Now, if then every time I went to the gym, I was like, I'm a fat piece of shit. I can't eat pizza because I'm broken or because I have this food addiction or I can't, it has to be framed as I'm so excited to be a fighter again. I'm so excited to get back in the gym. Okay, my cardio is not what it used to be, but it's going to be. And how exciting is that? And, my wife still has to stop me every time I look in the mirror, or I'll make, jokes about like my stomach or whatever. And, she still stops me. But if it gets to the legit point of self-hate, you go, well, what's the point? Right? Like, I had this really big financial loss that happened like 2 days after our wedding. And it was like this first like faith crisis I had. And I just go, it seems like God's punishing me. He hates me, learning that like, oh, some of these Christians are so full of shit, which I've known my whole life, but like I put the blinders on for a couple months. And I was so hurt and I was so sad that I heard all these voices be like, well, ruin the thing. Like, fuck your marriage too. If you're if you're the fuck up, then who cares about like that? Or, you don't need to train because like, what's the fucking point? And maybe you should eat shitty. And so self-hate, most of the time, like maybe it gets you to the gym for a week, but it'll lead to fucking spirals. But, now it's like my wife and I are training together and we're learning new stuff. And suddenly I just find myself eating cleaner automatically because we're training more. Again, doing something that we love. It's like acquiring a skill. And I go, oh, all of this is beyond sustainable. Yeah. And it's because I'm excited about the man I'm becoming, not hating the person I was or falling back into those like old stories.
Yeah. For me, it's systems and there's a harmony. And I think about it like almost musically, right? Like is this harmony or dissonance, and which side of it is producing an effect that makes me feel peaceful, or which side is producing tension? And the tension can even come when I am trying to be right, when I am trying to go like, I have this idea and I'm going to force my idea on myself and others, and I'm going to be right. And there's a tension, and the tension for me disappears when I just relax into what is true. And quite often what is true is not what I'm thinking is right. And all of this is to say, like, when you find it, and even if it doesn't look anything like what you think it should look like,
yes,
you can sense this feeling of like, oh, there's a truth on this path that releases tension in me, that makes me go like, this doesn't require nearly as much effort. Now, like, sometimes you have to put effort into figuring out how to do the things we're talking about, right? Like, you show up at the gym, you do a workout, and it's like, this is really easy. And then signing up is a pain in the ass. And the process of signing up is a nightmare. And you're filling out forms and you're like, this causes me tension.
Well, I'm not going to do it. Old voice being like, you know what, maybe this isn't as good. Maybe we should think about it. We should get right. You get that anxiety. Like,
it's a big commitment, 3 years. And
that still happens to me.
Yeah.
Man, what you just said was so powerful, and probably saved someone a couple grand to go into Costa Rica to do an ayahuasca journey. That's like Zen master shit. That's so true. And I feel like ever since I got back into stand-up, which out of fear I've been pushing away, ever since I got back out of into jiu-jitsu, even being vegetarian, like, I'm not going to say that it's because of the diet. I'm going to say it's because this is who I am. Yeah. I've always been a comedian. I've always tried to be a vegetarian since I was 16. I always cared about, all the things that I'm doing. I'm like that. I've run away from. I've run away from jiu-jitsu. I've run away from stand-up. I've, done the keto thing. And now I just feel aligned. but there is always, pushback. Like when you talked about, do I feel peace? Christians would say, anytime you hear something, hating or fear-based, that's like the devil. And if it's love, that's God. Secular people would say that it's the ego, anytime it's fear-based or negative, and your true sort of self, who you really are. Or spiritual people might say, your soul, that's going to always be love. And I think that the key to figuring out all of that is stillness and presence. We are in such a fucking chaotic world, especially with social media, that sometimes you just have to close fucking everything, take a deep breath, and like you said, be like, what is true? And really gauge, like, when do I feel good? You could go to jiujitsu and get the shit kicked out of you by everyone, and you're driving home and you're just like, dude, I'm kind of a badass for going through.
It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's probably for you, right? Or maybe you're doing, for me, and it could also be in phases, right? So for me, the most recent time I kind of took a break from stand-up, shows were going better than ever in Austin. I mean, better than ever. Like I got to open for Duncan Trussell, like all these like heroes of mine. Like I wasn't having bad shows. Like the material was locked in. But I started noticing that I just like I wasn't a fun hang, I was like getting up early to go to church or to meditate. I was trying not to drink and whatever. And I found myself that when I was around my friends and comics, I would be talking like I thought a comic was supposed to talk. So I would literally like leave my wife after meditating and be like, I love you so much. And, working out that day and being healthy. And then suddenly I show up at the club and I'm there for 5 minutes and I'm like smoking cigarettes and I'm like, yeah, these fucking queers are, and I'm like, I don't talk like this. What am I doing? And I blame so I go, okay, I just got to stop doing stand-up.
Get out of that space.
Yeah, it's like, no, I have to grow the fuck up and I have to be confident in who I am and not need everyone to like me. And by the way, chances are if I chill the fuck out, they'll like me anyway because they already like me. I don't need to, talk like I think. Just go up on stage, do very well, be nice to people, and fucking leave.
The search for truth is wild, and like in the most banal or base terms, I could say like with my kids, I walk into the kitchen one morning, there's a pile of dirty dishes, I feel tension. I want to examine that and go, what's causing that tension? Well, I needed my kids to clean the dishes. Did I? What do I really need? Well, I want a clean kitchen. And then if I keep searching for the thing that relieves the most tension, right? Because I could get angrier and angrier and angrier about how my spoiled fucking kids left dirty dishes. Where I finally arrive when I'm examining and touching thoughts that produce tension or relieve tension is, if I do the dishes, I'll have a clean kitchen, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
If that's all I need, then I can do the dishes and I'll be okay. And then I can have a conversation with my kids and I don't have to get angry. I don't have to scream. I don't have to demand anything. And I apply this to everything. Like, does me needing to run, which literally the idea of it right now causes tension in me because I've done it and I've felt it. But if I have this thought that I need to do it, causes tension. But I can go on the elliptical machine and that causes a feeling of peace.
Yeah. Well, by the way, back to the dishes example. I mean, sometimes it's even deeper. The amount of times that I've like stormed out of this place and gone to my wife who loves me so much and been like, do I have to do everything? And then suddenly I come home and I'm like, that was about everyone abandoning me in my past. Like sometimes it's not about the dishes. Sometimes it's about like, man, like I try so hard and why can't they just do this one thing I asked? And then you're like, oh, do I? Like for me, it's a lot of times my like triggers come from like I feel abandoned or like I'm being taken advantage of.
Right.
And so something like the dishes, it's not just can you do the dishes? It's like,
can you love me?
Leave me.
Right. Do you love me? I want you to show me how you love me by doing the dishes, please.
Do the dish so I can feel love. For the love of God, I know I could do the dish, but I don't love me, and I need you to love me. So do the fucking dish.
Yeah, I wanted to say something too about you. You were talking about self-hate, and for the longest time, I think about this as like a razor's edge with stuff like shame. And I think like if you have a group of people and there is an agreed upon moral stance on something, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, and one person is going against that agreement, then I understand shame. It's like, hey, we don't do that, and you're doing that, and like we're not cool with it, and we're going to let you know by saying that's not cool and that's bad, and you should experience a feeling of badness because you keep doing that thing, whatever it is.
To the stand-up comedian who keeps doing that thing.
Yeah, feel shitty about yourself. But I think like when it's internal and it's getting in the way of you progressing towards something that is productive or helpful or positive, that's not useful. Like that is a big fucking waste of time. And that was where I existed for so long. I can't go to the gym until I lose a bunch of weight and people don't perceive me as not belonging there. Doesn't make any sense, because that's the place you go on the path to existing as you think you're supposed to be perceived. Like it's such a waste of time.
And it's so common. I mean, I can tell you, I remember when I started working at when I started coaching at 10th Planet in Austin, the head coach is this great guy named Gabe Tuttle. He's this like tiny dude who just massacres everybody. He was given like Rogan privates for a minute. And I was like kind of trying to like prove my worth. And I was like, hey, I talked to this guy on the street, and like he said he's totally going to come in and train. And Gabe's like, he's probably not going to come in and train, because Gabe used to do that all the time when he was at 10 Planet San Diego. And he wasn't saying that to be a jerk. He's one of the most supportive people in the world. But the amount of people, every time I meet someone, whether they know who I am or they just see my ears or whatever, this is every conversation, literally every conversation I have with a male who wants to talk to me about jiu-jitsu in the street. They go, hey, you train? And I go, yeah, man, do you train? And they're like, I was gonna, and, I went to a trial class and like my knee's a little weird. And like, I'm just gonna like lift a little first. And you just go, just do jiu-jitsu.
Just train.
Just do it. There's no amount of shape you will get in. I promise. I'll put you out if you're jacked or if you're fit. Like, it's going to be the same problems. Do jiu-jitsu, and then you'll start building, the muscles and the movements and all that stuff. And even this morning, dude, it's like anytime you want to do something healthy, all of these little fucking creatures that have built up in your head through years of trauma and failure and shame or whatever, it's like, I feel like if I want to meditate, I'm like Bruce Lee walking into the room and suddenly there's like 100 black belts he has to fight. And all of those black belts are reasons why I shouldn't do it. Yeah. Like literally this morning, I was like, my one goal, I want to go back to doing breath work. I'm scared of doing breath work. I'm not good at it sometimes. I know it's really good for me. And I wake up and I go, well, my wife didn't wake up and we were going to do it together and she's sick. So maybe I won't do it. Or the fucking fire alarm went off at 4 a.m. So we didn't sleep well. So I'll start tomorrow. Okay, maybe I'll just, instead of doing that, I'll do this thing that's still kind of healthy. And I literally told my wife, I'm going to do it. I'm going to meditate. And she comes out to check on me 10 minutes later. And I'm like on Twitter. And she was like, we meditating? And I finally did it. And I will tell everybody, when you do the thing that your ego is fighting you on, not only did I feel fucking good because I meditated and did breath work. And by the way, I wanted to do an hour. I did like 40 minutes. I felt even stronger because I was like, fuck you, ego. Like again, if you don't want to go to jiu-jitsu or you don't want to go to the gym and you go and you do fine, you should still feel so good because you fucking got there.
Yeah.
But that's why watching our thoughts is so important. Because you have to be able to see yourself trying to talk yourself out of it and then have the presence of mind to go, that's not real. Because what does that lead to, right? I'm not going to meditate. Well, you know what? I'm not going to go to the gym. And last night was really hard and the fire alarm. So let's just like take a cheat day. And I know we're on a budget, but like, babe, I don't want you to cook today because you're not feeling well. So like, let's just go get pizza. And then, oh shit, tomorrow's Saturday. Maybe we just make this like a fun weekend. Shit's been really hard for us. And now by the time Monday comes along, you are dealing with 4 days of derailing. And it's really fucking hard to get back on track. Yeah. Whereas like right now, it's noon and I've gone to the gym and I've meditated. And honestly, even if I don't hit everything else on my to-do list,
you had a pretty great day.
Fucking win. It's a win. Yeah.
Jamie, tell me about your new podcast, because I actually have another podcast starting in 1 minute, but I want to hear about your new podcast.
My wife got a sign, so it's called Trauma Bonding with Alex and Jamie, and it is our first year of marriage. We lost everything pretty quickly.
This is the way to start a marriage,
bro. It's the way
you gotta go through it quick.
The idea that she was like, if she was telling her friends about me who didn't know me, like I met this guy and he's kind of famous and he's a comedian, and then we get married and 2 days later, I'm like, I've lost it all. I sound like a carny. It sounds like I was tricking her. And so she's a fucking rock. And we started this podcast, and it's the most I've ever laughed on a podcast or had fun on a podcast. And it's everything that we were talking about. It's just like, we're not picking sides. We're going through the shit with our audience, right? So it's not like a kind of, no offense to him, I've listened to him, like Tony Robbins, like, you want to get right, like go into your cold plunge, and like, we don't have a cold plunge. We have a community pool that's like kind of warm. Right. And we just want people to know what you were saying, like they're not alone. We're going to be funny about it. We call our listeners the little sad pandas, and it's growing like pretty fast. And that's it. You can go to JamieKilsteinPodcast.com or YouTube.com @Trauma Bonding, or just follow me on Instagram, where I also make sketches and post stand-up about pretty much everything we talked about today, plus like some faith crisis shit. And my Instagram is @the_Jamie_Kilstein, which is like the social I'm on the most.
Amazing. I can't wait to listen to it. Jamie, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Love you, buddy. Thank you. This was great.
See you later.
Bye.